Beneath the golden glow of a San Francisco sunset, Elise Marrow believed she held the world in her hands. A flawless husband, a family on the cusp of welcoming 3 tiny angels. But darkness descended when she uncovered a shattering truth. The man she loved had taken her own money to build a palace for his mistress. From the ashes of heartbreak, Elise rose, not merely to reclaim what was hers, but to rewrite the story of her life. Will she triumph, or will she fall? Watch now to find out. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to never miss this gripping, heart-pounding tale. Alright, before you settle in, take a sec to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely vibing with what I'm putting out here. And drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a thrill to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe. Under the radiant glow of a San Francisco sunset, its golden rays gliding over the city's winding slopes and slipping through the windows of the opulent villa atop Nob Hill, Elise Marrow stood in the grandeur she once called her sanctuary, her hand gently resting on her rounded belly. Week 36. 3 tiny heartbeats pulsed steadily within her, a sacred secret she and Nathan Carver, the husband she adored, had chosen to shield from the world's prying eyes. Each soft kick from her babies felt like a whisper of the future, a promise of dazzling days ahead. Yet now, those same heartbeats carried a shadow of unease, like an undercurrent rippling beneath a tranquil sea. Elise sensed a darkness creeping in, not from the vibrant city beyond, but from the very space she stood in. Nathan, the man who once set her heart ablaze with his sharp smile and eternal vows under candlelight, had become a distant figure, a stranger cloaked in familiarity. He grew remote, like the cold wind sweeping across San Francisco Bay. Endless business trips, late-night phone calls, his gaze averted each time he crossed the threshold. A foreign scent, sharp and sweet, clung to his suit jackets. Not hers. It was a silent warning, a crack in the perfect portrait of the marriage she had woven in her mind. Elise didn't want to believe it. She told herself it was merely the weight of his work, that Nathan Carver, CEO of Nexus Tech, the titan atop Silicon Valley, was simply caught in the whirlwind of ambition. But her heart, keener than her reason, had begun to fracture. She stood there, the sunset's glow streaming through the glass, casting a fragile light upon her. Her hand tightened instinctively on her belly, as if to shield the 3 precious lives from truths she wasn't ready to face. Memories of Nathan from their early days flooded back, his warm smile, the long nights when he held her hand, promising to build a world for them. But now, each time he returned, she saw only a man in a polished facade, his words smooth but hollow, his eyes no longer hers. She tried to banish the doubts, but they took root, deep and unyielding, like the morning fog blanketing the city. That day, Nathan came home early, a rarity in recent months. He stepped inside, his gray suit still pristine, but his smile strained, like a painting with a single flawed stroke. He loosened his tie, his movements slow, almost hesitant. A fleeting apology slipped from his lips, soft but devoid of warmth, about a meeting in Silicon Valley that ran longer than expected. Elise stood in the light-filled kitchen, striving to keep her voice steady. She spoke of her doctor's visit, assuring him everything was fine, that all 3 babies were thriving. She lingered on 3 babies, the words a subtle blade, probing for his reaction. Nathan froze, the wine glass he'd just poured stilled in his hand. A flash of panic, sharp as lightning, darted across his eyes, a fleeting moment, but enough for Elise to see. He quickly regained his composure, his perfect smile returning, his voice brimming with feigned excitement. 3. That's incredible, Elise. But she saw through it. Beneath the polished exterior, something was hidden. Nathan's words landed, but they didn't reach Elise's heart. They were like stones skimming across a lake, leaving no ripples. She nodded, lips pressed tight, her gaze unwavering on him. In that moment, she felt a chasm open between them, as if they stood on opposite ends of a broken bridge. The trust she had placed in him, each brick she'd laid to build this life, now trembled. She didn't want to confront it, didn't want to admit that the man she loved might be crafting a world without her and their children. But her heart, though aching, began to whisper the truth. She turned away, her eyes drifting to the glass panes where San Francisco stretched out beneath the fading sunset. The sloping streets, the twinkling rooftops, all felt alien now. She was a wanderer in her own home, trapped between love and suspicion. The 3 tiny heartbeats within her pulsed steadily, like a small flame in the darkness, reminding her of what she had to protect. But deep within her soul, a storm was brewing. Elise didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew. Whatever it was, she wouldn't let it destroy what she held most dear. The sunset faded, leaving her in a dim, ethereal light, her heart torn between pain and resolve. As days drifted by in the grand villa atop Nob Hill, Elise Marrow moved like a silent shadow, gliding through hallways bathed in light that now only stirred a hollow emptiness within her. Beyond the walls, San Francisco shimmered with vibrant life, its salty bay breezes sweeping through. But in her heart, a quiet storm was gathering strength. Nathan Carver, the husband she once trusted without question, now seemed nothing more than a polished facade. He threw himself into work with a feigned zeal, speaking of hiring nannies, of plans to expand the villa for the 3 children soon to arrive. Yet each word he uttered lacked warmth, like discordant notes in a symphony that had once been flawless. Elise watched him closely, catching the sharp, subtle details. The phone he always tilted away from her view. The furtive messages he tapped out in the dark. The anxious glance whenever a notification chimed. Each gesture was a cut, deepening the fracture in her heart. Doubt clung to Elise, thick and unyielding like San Francisco's morning fog, seeping into every thought. She tried to push it away, convincing herself it was merely the strain of the tech empire Nathan was building. But deep down, she knew the truth was lurking, waiting to unveil itself. She felt it in his fleeting touches, in the strange perfume lingering on his suit jackets, in the way he avoided meeting her eyes. Memories of Nathan from their early days, the man whose smile melted her heart, whose promises of a shared future felt unshakable, now seemed like shards of glass, sharp and painful when she reached for them. Standing by the window, gazing out at the twinkling city, her hand rested unconsciously on her pregnant belly, where 3 tiny heartbeats pulsed steadily, a small flame in the night, reminding her of what she had to protect. But even that joy was overshadowed by the fear that the world she'd built was crumbling. Then, one morning, as dawn's first light slipped through the curtains, fate quietly knocked. Nathan was in the shower, the steady hum of water echoing from the bathroom, and his tablet lay forgotten on the bedside table. Elise had no intention of prying. She reached for a glass of water to ease a sudden wave of nausea, but her hand brushed the screen, and it flickered to life. An email appeared, its title simple, almost innocuous. Finalization of Aspen property transaction. Aspen. The word rang in her mind like an alarm bell. Nathan had never mentioned Colorado, never hinted at plans beyond San Francisco. Her heart pounded, threatening to break free from her chest. With trembling hands, she opened the email, though a part of her pleaded it was a misunderstanding. The message came from a prestigious real estate firm, its polished congratulations detailing the purchase of a lavish estate in Aspen. The descriptions cut like blades. A mansion with an infinity pool, a view embracing the Rockies, valued at tens of millions. But what froze the blood in Elise's veins wasn't the extravagance. It was the CC line, where Cassandra Lee, director of Lee Lux Events, was listed as a primary recipient. Cassandra, the woman with cascading golden hair, eyes sharp as sapphires, always present at the charity galas Nathan insisted Elise attend. Elise recalled Cassandra's smile, sweet to the point of artifice, and the lingering touch on Nathan's shoulder. She'd dismissed it as the harmless charm of a woman accustomed to the social spotlight. But now, like a puzzle snapping into place, every fragment aligned. The truth emerged, sharp and merciless. Nathan hadn't bought the house for their family, not for her and the 3 children growing inside her. He'd bought it for Cassandra. Pain tore through Elise's chest, as if the air had been sucked from the room. She scrolled through the email, each line a fresh wound. Discussions of furnishings, plans for a grand opening party Cassandra was orchestrating. Elise pictured her, striding through that house with a triumphant smile, her footsteps echoing on floors paid for with Elise's sweat and trust. Tears welled, but she held them back, her grip tightening on the tablet as if she could crush the betrayal within it. The 3 heartbeats within her pulsed on, no longer just a reminder of the future, but a fire urging her to face the truth. She sat there, in the silent room, morning light bathing her face, yet unable to pierce the darkness enveloping her soul. Doubt had transformed into certainty, and with it came a smoldering anger, like embers poised to ignite. Elise knew this moment would change everything. She was no longer the woman waiting for Nathan to return with love. She was a mother, a warrior, ready to defend what was hers. The darkness had arrived, but within her, a flame was quietly rising, waiting to burn through the lies. The morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, scattering faint streaks of light across the wooden floor of the villa atop Nob Hill. Elise Marrow sat on the edge of the bed, her trembling hands clutching Nathan's tablet as if it were the final anchor tethering her to a reality that was crumbling around her. Each tap on the screen sliced into her heart as she scrolled through cold, soulless emails, their words as sharp as a blade. The lines unveiled a world Nathan had built behind her back, a lavish estate in Aspen, where Cassandra Lee, with her proud smile and piercing green eyes, was selecting furnishings and orchestrating a grand opening gala. Every word was a dagger, carving deeper into the trust Elise had nurtured through 5 years of marriage. She thought she had grown accustomed to doubt, but this truth surpassed her darkest nightmares. She paused at an attached document, her heart pounding as if it might shatter her chest. It was a deed of transfer, a dry contract laced with cruel betrayal. Nathan Carver was named as the financier, Cassandra as the beneficiary, but the property was managed through a complex trust, its terms tangled like a spider's web. In his haste to complete this gift for his mistress, Nathan had made a fatal error. The funds for the estate were drawn from a joint account, where Elise had poured her substantial inheritance before their marriage, a legacy from her family, a fragment of memories from days of freedom and hope. A small legal detail, nearly invisible amid the dense text, stopped her heart. Unless a clear agreement separated it, this property belonged to the marital community. No such agreement existed. The house, though built for Cassandra, bore Elise's imprint, was hers, at least in part. The truth pierced her, not like a cold wind, but like a blazing fire. It consumed her pain, transforming it into something sharper, fiercer. She pictured Cassandra striding through that house, beneath glittering chandeliers, laughing atop the wealth Elise had helped create. She saw Nathan, his smug smile, believing he could conceal it all, that Elise would remain the compliant wife, never questioning. But the fire within her wasn't just anger. It was an awakening, a declaration that she would not be erased from her own story. The 3 tiny heartbeats in her belly pulsed steadily, like a drumbeat urging her forward, reminding her of what she had to protect. She was not merely a betrayed wife. She was a mother, a warrior, and she would not let Nathan steal her children's future. The sound of water in the bathroom ceased. Nathan emerged, hair damp, a towel wrapped around his waist, his usual confident smile playing on his lips. But when his eyes met Elise's, landing on the tablet in her hands, That smile vanished like fog under sunlight. His face paled, his eyes widening in a fleeting moment of panic before he masked it. She stared at him, unblinking, her voice cutting through the air, sharp as a dagger. A question about Aspen, about the opening gala she knew he couldn't answer honestly. He stammered, denials spilling out instinctively, followed by blame, then please. Each word fueled the fire raging within Elise. She didn't need to hear more. The truth was stark, unyielding, needing no justification from him to stand firm. She pointed to the door, her voice icy, unwavering, commanding him to leave. In that moment, she was no longer the Elise of blind devotion. She was a mountain, steadfast and unyielding, immovable. Nathan, his face that of a man who had lost everything, dressed in silence. He dragged a pre-packed suitcase behind him, a small detail that stabbed Elise like a final blade. He had been ready to abandon her, even before she uncovered the truth. The door closed behind him, the click echoing in the stillness, like a hammer striking the coffin of their once-shared marriage. The villa sank into silence, broken only by the fierce rhythm of Elise's heartbeat, like waves crashing against a rocky shore. She sat alone, morning light bathing her face, yet unable to dispel the darkness cloaking her soul. Tears didn't fall, not because she was strong, but because the pain had transcended tears. It had hardened into something solid, razor-edged. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the 3 tiny heartbeats, and for the first time that day, a spark of hope flickered within her. The house in Aspen, though raised to betray her, still carried her mark, and she would not let it fall into Cassandra's hands. The fire within her had ignited, and it would guide her through the darkness. As night fell over the villa on Nob Hill, darkness enveloped Elise Marrow like a heavy shroud. She sat alone in the vast room, once filled with laughter and whispered vows of love. Now, only her muffled sobs echoed, each tear a fragment of a shattered dream. Nathan Carver's betrayal, the husband to whom she had given her whole heart, was not just a single wound. It was a tempest, ripping apart the world she had so carefully constructed. The house in Aspen, a lavish gift for Cassandra Lee, was paid for with her own money, her trust, the years she stood behind him, bolstering his ambitions. She wept, not out of weakness, but because the pain was immense, razor sharp, as if it sought to consume her entirely. Yet, as the last tears fell, as the darkness seemed to claim her completely, a spark flared within her soul, a steely resolve, like a fire igniting from the ashes. Dawn broke, and the first rays of sunlight slipped through the windows, casting a glow on Elise's face, now free of tears. The pain lingered, but it had transformed into something solid, piercing. She was no longer the woman trembling before the truth. She was a mother, carrying 3 precious lives within her, and she would not let Nathan steal her children's future. With hands still trembling, she picked up the phone and called Lucas Marrow, her brother, a brilliant lawyer in Los Angeles who had never trusted Nathan's polished charm. Her voice, though choked with emotion, held firm as she recounted everything: the cruel betrayal, the Aspen estate, the damning detail in the deed. She spoke of the joint account, where her vast inheritance had been used by Nathan to craft a new world for his mistress. Lucas listened in silence, but she could feel the fury simmering in his every breath. When she paused, his voice came, low and sharp, a declaration that Nathan had placed himself in a vulnerable position, that his mistake was a golden opportunity for her to reclaim what was hers. Lucas's words poured fuel on the fire within Elise. He broke it down meticulously. The joint account was never separated. The trust Nathan had set up to conceal his actions still named her as a passive beneficiary. The house, though intended for Cassandra, remained marital property, and Colorado's strict community property laws would stand with her. But Lucas didn't stop at reclaiming her rights. He proposed a bold, almost audacious plan. not just to sue for her share, but to seize the Aspen estate entirely, by moving into it, stepping onto Cassandra's territory, turning a symbol of betrayal into one of her triumph. The idea made Elise's heart race, not with fear, but with a strange exhilaration. She envisioned herself in that house, facing Cassandra, the 3 tiny heartbeats in her belly her source of strength. It wasn't merely revenge, it was how she would reclaim herself. Elise sent Lucas every document she had, each email, each line of the deed, every shred of evidence of Nathan's deceit. She worked with fierce focus, as if each action laid a brick in rebuilding her shattered world. Lucas, with remarkable efficiency, assembled a top-tier legal team, including a Colorado divorce expert who knew every nuance of community property law. They convened through long calls, strategizing, dissecting every clause in the trust. Elise listened, the fire within her burning brighter with each affirmation. She wasn't just fighting for a house. She was battling for her dignity, for her children, for the right to stand tall before the man who thought he could erase her from her own story. When the call ended, Elise rose and stepped onto the balcony, gazing down at San Francisco, sparkling in the dawn's light. The city was still beautiful, but it no longer felt like hers. She thought of Aspen, of the estate awaiting her, of the moment she would confront Nathan and Cassandra. The pain still smoldered, but it was no longer a burden. It was fuel, the force propelling her forward. The 3 heartbeats in her belly pulsed steadily, like a war drum, reminding her she was not alone. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the life growing within, and for the first time in days, she smiled. It wasn't a gentle smile. It was sharp, resolute, like a blade forged in fire. The villa on Nob Hill might be where she lost her love, but it was also where she found her strength. And that strength would carry her to Aspen, to victory. The airplane door swung open, and the biting chill of Denver rushed in, wrapping around Elise Merrill like a stark warning. She sat there, on the flight from San Francisco, her hand resting lightly on her pregnant belly, where 3 tiny heartbeats pulsed steadily, a warming flame amidst the tempest raging within her. A week had passed since the truth about Nathan and Cassandra shattered her world, and she was no longer the woman trembling in the shadows. She had become a mountain, steadfast and unyielding, ready to set foot on the territory of her betrayer. Beside her, Harper Marrow, her sister, a freelance journalist with a fiery heart and fearless spirit, clasped her hand, her eyes gleaming like a torch. Harper needed no words to affirm her presence. A single glance was enough for Elise to know she was not alone. Together, they stepped off the plane, carrying not just luggage, but a resolve of steel, prepared to face whatever awaited in Aspen. Within Elise, a complex torrent of emotions swirled. The pain still smoldered, like a burn yet to heal, but it no longer brought her to her knees. Instead, it was fuel, the strength propelling her forward. Lucas, her brother, had achieved the impossible, an emergency court order from Colorado, granting her temporary exclusive use of the Aspen estate. The court, outraged by Nathan's illicit use of marital assets, had acted with rare swiftness. The order rested in Elise's hand, a fragile sheet of paper, but weighty as a declaration of war. It was more than legal proof. It was a symbol of her awakening, of her determination to reclaim what belonged to her and her children. Each time she thought of Cassandra, with her haughty smile and cascading golden hair, Elise felt a jolt surge through her. Not fear, but the thrill of the impending confrontation. The SUV glided through Aspen's snow-draped roads, the glow of streetlights dancing on the pristine white blanket. Elise gazed out the window, feeling the cold seep through her coat. But it didn't make her shiver. She thought of the estate awaiting her, where Nathan had built a world for Cassandra, using her own money to embellish his betrayal. But now, she would enter it, not as a victim, but as its master. Harper, seated beside her, nudged her shoulder. her eyes blazing with a promise that this moment would be etched in memory forever. Elise smiled, a smile not soft but razor-sharp, honed by pain and resolve. As the vehicle turned onto the road leading to the estate, vibrant music pulsed from afar, a defiant challenge. Cassandra's grand opening gala was in full swing, with luxury cars, Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Ferraris, lining the entrance, gleaming under the lights. Elise's heart quickened, not with anxiety, but with a strange sense of power. She pictured Cassandra in a dazzling gown, raising a champagne flute, believing she had won, that the house was hers. But Elise knew this moment belonged to her. She stepped out of the SUV, the court order in hand, a neatly folded paper heavy as a verdict. Aspen's cold bit into her skin, but it only stoked the fire burning brighter within her. A tall security guard in a black suit approached, his gaze icy. He demanded her name, his voice flat, mechanical. Elise stood tall, meeting his eyes, feeling the 3 heartbeats in her belly like a war drum. She replied, her voice unwavering, that she was Elise Carver, the rightful owner of the house, backed by a court order. The guard faltered, his composure cracking, his eyes flickering as she held up the document. He spoke into his radio, his tone growing urgent. The music from within softened, as if the entire space held its breath. Elise felt a surge of adrenaline, not from fear, but from the certainty that she held the upper hand. Harper stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, her eyes alight like a warrior poised for battle. She flashed a subtle smile, a daring one, as if to say they were ready. The iron gates creaked open, the metallic groan piercing the frigid air. Elise stepped forward, each stride a proclamation. She wasn't merely entering a house. She was invading the enemy's domain, armed with the might of truth and justice. Aspen's cold couldn't touch her, couldn't extinguish the blaze roaring in her soul. She thought of her children, of the future she would forge for them, and a strange serenity rose amidst the storm of emotions. This was the moment she reclaimed herself, not just from Nathan, but from the days when doubt had dimmed her light. The estate's doors loomed ahead, and Elise knew, when they opened, she would never be the woman she once was. The double doors of the Aspen estate swung wide, light from the chandeliers spilling out, illuminating the pristine snow outside like a radiant stage. Elise Marrow stood there, beneath Colorado's biting cold, her hand gripping the court order tightly, her heart pounding yet unshaken. Beside her, Harper Marrow, her sister, stood tall like a warrior, her gaze sharp as a blade poised to slice through any lie. Before them, Cassandra Lee emerged, a vision of unyielding pride, her crimson dress clinging to her form, golden hair shimmering under the lights, a confident smile proclaiming her the queen of this domain. But when her eyes met Elise's, that smile froze, cracking like ice under the sun. In that moment, Elise felt a surge course through her, not fear, but the exhilaration of one who holds the truth, ready to topple an empire of deceit. Inside, the guests, Aspen's glittering elite, halted, their champagne flutes suspended, as if time itself had paused. They peered out, their eyes a mix of curiosity and unease, sensing a storm approaching. Elise took a step forward, her shoes striking the cold stone floor, each step resounding like a war drum. She raised the court order high, a fragile sheet of paper but weighty as a verdict, her gaze locked on Cassandra. She needed no words to assert her power. Her presence, bearing the weight of 3 unborn lives, spoke volumes. This was not Cassandra's house, no matter her claims. It was marital property, paid for with Elise's sweat and trust, and the Colorado courts had sided with her, granting her exclusive use. A process server, stern and composed, approached, handing a copy of the order to Cassandra. Her hands trembled as she took it, her proud smile dissolving, replaced by a fury she couldn't conceal. Whispers rippled through the crowd, like wind rustling through a pine forest. Elise felt their stares, shifting from intrigue to shock, but she stood unwavering. She was a mountain amidst a blizzard, her eyes never leaving Cassandra. Within her, emotions churned, the ache of betrayal, the anger of being underestimated, and a newfound pride, forged in the crucible of days she thought had broken her. She thought of Nathan, the man who once promised her the world, now building one for another. And then, as if summoned by her thoughts, Nathan appeared, pushing through the throng, his face as pale as the snow outside. The champagne glass in his hand slipped, shattering on the marble floor, its sharp crack echoing the fracture of the empire he'd built. He looked at Elise, his eyes wild with panic, like a man yanked from a beautiful dream. Elise faced him, unflinching, the 3 heartbeats in her belly pulsing like a rallying drum. She didn't need to shout or weep. Her presence, with the court order in hand and Harper at her side, was an undeniable proclamation. She thought of the nights she'd cried until no tears remained, the moments she questioned what she'd done wrong. But now, standing before Nathan and Cassandra, she was no longer that woman. She was the consequence of their lies, a fire rising from the ashes of trust. She pictured her children, souls yet to be born but already her strength, and knew this house would be where she'd build their future. She envisioned a sunlit room where they'd grow, and a strange calm bloomed amidst the emotional storm. Cassandra, her pride unraveling, erupted in rage. She lunged toward Elise, her manicured nails flashing like claws meant to tear the truth apart. But Harper, swift as lightning, stepped forward, blocking her, her gaze cold as steel. A nearby police officer, calm but resolute, raised a hand, his voice a firm warning. Cassandra halted, her breath ragged, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. The guests began to retreat, their phones discreetly recording, their eyes no longer curious, but stunned by a drama beyond their imagining. The gala, meant to crown Cassandra, dissolved into silence, leaving her and Nathan amid the wreckage of their arrogance. Elise stood there, the chandelier's glow bathing her like spotlights on a stage, yet she felt no pressure. She felt her own strength, forged from pain and resolve. She looked at Nathan, seeing defeat in his eyes, and a small part of her ached, not for love, but for the memory of the man she once trusted. But that pain was swiftly consumed by the fire within her. She thought of her children, of this house, and a subtle smile curved her lips, not one of victory, but of liberation. The estate's doors remained open, and Elise knew, as she crossed that threshold, she wouldn't just claim a house, she would reclaim herself. The Aspen estate, with its white stone walls and windows embracing the Rockies, had become Elise Marrow's dominion. She chose the master suite, where morning sunlight poured in, casting a warm golden glow across the wooden floor, a quiet promise of a brighter future. Yet beneath its grandeur, a silent war simmered. Cassandra Lee, unwilling to relinquish her proud dream, entrenched herself in a lavish guest room, transforming the space into an invisible battlefield. She blasted music at odd hours of the night, glided through the halls in dazzling gowns, flaunting her presence as if to remind Elise that she had not yet been defeated. Each of Cassandra's actions was a deliberate jab, designed to provoke anger or expose weakness in Elise. But Elise, her heart tempered by pain, maintained a serene composure, like a lake undisturbed by ripples. She focused on her health, on the 3 tiny heartbeats within her, on the days ahead when her children would enter the world. The fire within her didn't flare at these provocations. It burned steadily, resolute, awaiting the right moment. Within Elise, a strange calm mingled with vigilance. She knew Cassandra was more than a defeated rival. She was a threat, a serpent coiled in the shadows. But Elise refused to be drawn into Cassandra's games. She strolled through the snow-draped gardens, breathing in Aspen's biting air, feeling the life within her as an endless well of strength. She treated the household staff with genuine kindness, a stark contrast to Cassandra's haughty demeanor. Slowly, their neutral glances softened into respect, even empathy. One afternoon, as Elise sat by the fireplace, its dancing flames mirrored in her eyes, Rosa, the housekeeper with a stern face but warm gaze, approached. She spoke in a hushed tone, as if the walls might eavesdrop, warning Elise about Cassandra. Angry phone calls, urgent whispers in the dead of night, and a mysterious visitor. A man with a scarred cheek, unlike any of Nathan's associates. Rosa's words were a cold gust, sweeping through Elise, sharpening her instincts. She sensed danger, not just to herself, but to her unborn children. Unease clung to Elise, like shadows creeping beneath Aspen's twinkling stars. She thought of Cassandra, her sharp green eyes now surely blazing with hatred. She knew Cassandra wouldn't stop at childish taunts. And then, as if fate had intervened, Harper, with the keen instincts of a journalist, discovered Cassandra's phone, left carelessly by the pool. Without hesitation, Harper unlocked it, her eyes glinting like a hunter spotting a trail. In the recently deleted messages, they found exchanges with someone called the Fixer. Cold, calculated words sketching a sinister plot. Cassandra planned to frame Elise, to paint her as mentally unstable, even a danger to her babies. Her scheme was a poisoned blade, planting false evidence to make the police doubt Elise, potentially stripping her of her right to motherhood. A new message flashed, like a death knell. "My man arrives in 20 minutes. Elise's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a cold, razor-sharp fury, as piercing as the Rockies' ice. In that moment, Elise felt herself poised on the edge between light and darkness. The pain of betrayal, the rage of being underestimated, fused into a potent force. She was no longer the woman who quaked before the truth. She was a mother, ready to fight for her children. Harper, her eyes ablaze, snapped photos of each message, each line a testament to a crime. They called Lucas, Elise's voice calm yet cutting, relaying everything. From Los Angeles, Lucas sprang into action, his tone low but resolute. They contacted the officer who had escorted Elise on her arrival, a stern but reliable man. A trap was set, not for vengeance, but for protection. To safeguard Elise, her children, the future she was rebuilding from ashes. Elise stood in the master suite, gazing at the mist-shrouded mountains, feeling Aspen's chill seep through the window. She thought of her children, of the days she would hold them in her arms, and a subtle smile curved her lips. Cassandra could scheme in the shadows, but Elise had learned to wield darkness as strength. The fire within her didn't burn to destroy. It burned to illuminate, to guide. 20 minutes from now, the man with the scarred cheek would arrive. But Elise was ready. She was not merely a betrayed wife. She was a warrior, and this battlefield would be hers. Beneath the dim glow of the Aspen Estates hallway, Elise Marrow stood motionless, her heart thundering like a war drum. Colorado's chill seeped through her coat, but it couldn't touch the fire blazing within her. Beside her, Harper, her sister, gripped a brass table lamp, her eyes sharp as a hunter awaiting prey. They concealed themselves in the shadows, their breaths mingling with the tense air, poised for the fateful moment. The final message from Cassandra's phone, a chilling declaration that the Fixer would arrive in 20 minutes, still haunted Elise. Cassandra's plot, ruthless and cold, targeted not only her but the 3 tiny lives within her womb. Yet Elise felt no fear. The pain of betrayal, the fury of being underestimated, had forged her into a warrior. She wasn't merely waiting to defend herself, she was setting a trap, ready to turn her enemy's vicious scheme into a fatal blow. The terrace door creaked softly, a faint but piercing sound in the stillness. A dark figure slipped inside, moving with the stealth of one accustomed to shadows. The man with the scarred cheek, his demeanor icy, headed straight for Elise's room, unaware he was stepping into a snare. The bag in his hand swayed slightly, filled with vials of liquid and Elise's personal items. False evidence to paint her as a threat to her own children. Elise felt blood rush to her head, not from fear, but from a cold, razor-sharp anger, as biting as the Rockies' frost. She thought of Lila, Ethan, and Nora, her unborn angels, and a fierce strength surged within her, like a fire flaring in the dead of night. Harper, sensing the moment, let out a piercing scream, not of terror but of outrage. The lights snapped on, banishing the darkness, and the wail of police sirens tore through the air from afar, shattering the silence. The man froze, his eyes widening as he realized he was ensnared. His bag dropped to the floor, revealing suspicious vials and Elise's familiar belongings, like a blade poised to slash her honor. But before he could flee, police stormed in, guns raised, their gazes unyielding. Elise stood unflinching, feeling the weight of victory. Cassandra appeared at the hallway's end, her face ashen, her once keen green eyes now clouded with horror. She tried to deny her guilt, but her phone, with its chilling messages to the fixer, laid bare her treachery. An officer, his voice low but sharp, ordered her cuffed. Camera flashes from the press outside blazed, capturing Cassandra, once the queen of high society, now led away in disgrace. Elise watched her, not with joy, but with a cold serenity, the calm of one who had conquered the darkness. Nathan arrived soon after, his face gaunt, his crumpled suit mirroring his collapsing empire. He saw Cassandra being taken, saw the scarred man subdued, and his gaze met Elise's, brimming with despair. But Elise felt no pain. She looked at him, seeing not the man she once loved, but a fool who had destroyed everything through greed and lies. Nathan's company, Nexus Tech, acted swiftly, ousting him in an emergency meeting, its stocks plummeting like stones into an abyss. The empire he'd built, once as dazzling as San Francisco's lights, was now mere ash. Elise stood amidst the storm, unbroken. She was the fire, and that fire had incinerated all that dared obstruct her. Time passed, and aspen sunlight flooded the master suite, where Elise sat, cradling Lila, Ethan, and Nora in her arms. Her three little angels, with their gentle touches and clear eyes, were the light that banished the shadows of the past. The estate, once a symbol of betrayal, was now hers, legally transferred after the trust ousted Nathan for fraud. Elise gazed at the mountains, feeling the peace she had wrested from the ashes. She recalled the days she wept until dry, the nights when doubt gnawed at her soul. But from that pain, she had rewritten her story. She hadn't just won. She had transformed anguish into strength, turning a house of lies into a haven for her children. Elise rose, sunlight bathing her face like a queen's crown. She didn't need vengeance to feel whole. Lila, Ethan, and Nora were why she fought, and Aspen was proof of her resilience. From darkness, she had found light, and that light would guide her and her children forever. Has Elise's story stirred your heart? A woman who, from profound pain, turned the fire within into a beacon for the future. Which moment moved you most? When Elise faced her foes, or when she held her children in her rightful home? Share in the comments. If you love tales of strength and justice, hit like, share with friends, and don't forget to ring the bell for our next video. See you soon.